comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
So when someone laughed last night, my dad would have turned in his grave.
Sir Keir Starmer doesn't get that people are actually laughing at him. And an unwanted piece of history for the Tories. Reform have now overtaken them in the polls for the very first time. More on that bombshell shortly. Plus,
summer outfits complete without a pair of sunglasses. Yeah.
Cool dad, cool dad.
And also, how do you feel about her?
is there a left-wing media bias here? Where's Ofcom when you need them? Also,
I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for this meet. I was just happy to be here trying to race and compete as best as I could.
and cheat, of course. Is it right that a trans swimmer accused of cheating and ruining women's careers has been banned from the Olympics? And the Green Party does not want to detain illegal immigrants like that. Plus, Nigel Farage says that he will work with the Conservatives, but on one condition. I wonder if he's changed his mind after that latest poll. On my panel tonight, it is the absolute top team of the Telegraph's Alison Pearson, Tory peer Lord Bailey, and journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. Oh, yes, and prepare to cringe.
Come on, 4th of July, don't forget to vote. 21 days to go. We got 21 days to go.
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Are the establishment media trying to rig the election? Next.
Patrick, thank you. And as you've just been hearing, the Conservative Party has fallen behind Reform UK for the first time in a YouGov poll commissioned by the Times newspaper. Nigel Farage's party are now 1 point ahead of the Tories, and he has said, "We are now the opposition to Labour." Labour still sits in the lead at 37%, with the Liberal Democrats at 14%, the Greens at 7%, the SNP at 3%, Plaid Cymru at 1%, and others at 2%. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer set out Labour's manifesto today, reaffirming his commitment to no rises to income tax or national insurance. The Labour leader put economic growth and stability at the core of his party's plan, promising to end what he called a desperate era of gestures and gimmicks. Back on the campaign trail in Crewe, he rejected Rishi Sunak's suggestion of higher taxes.
It is a manifesto that rejects fundamentally the proposition that Britain can't do better than this, that we have to go on in the way we've been going on in the last 14 years. It is a rejection of that. Britain can do better, Britain will do better, and with our manifesto and a mandate for a Labour government, we will take our country forward, and that will be felt in every community across the country.
The Liberal Democrats described Labour's manifesto as a gamble on economic growth that fails to set out how wealth will be shared more evenly. Sir Ed Davey joined his party's candidate for Tunbridge Wells, Mike Martin, at an obstacle course this afternoon. He said that trickle-down economics will not fix broken Britain.
They're suggesting £9 billion of investment to rescue our NHS, and we're talking about investment to help the poorest in our society. And we want to make sure that we've got the capital investment, in social homes, in the fight against climate change, and making sure the nature crisis is dealt with. So we have an ambitious policy package in the Liberal Democrats, and on top of that, we're the only party saying we need to reform our politics.
In other news, all G7 countries have agreed to continue funding a loan package for Ukraine worth nearly £40 billion. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the funds would be backed by proceeds from immobilised Russian sea assets. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak held a bilateral meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky today. Mr Sunak has called the funding package game-changing. US President Joe Biden and Volodymyr Zelensky have signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement aimed at bolstering Ukraine's defence against Russian invaders.
Collectively, this is a powerful set of actions and will create a stronger foundation for Ukraine's success. 2.5 years ago, Putin unleashed a brutal war in Ukraine, and it's been a horrifying ordeal for the Ukrainian people who are so brave and incredible. It's also been a test for the world. Would we stand with Ukraine? Would we stand for sovereignty, freedom, and against tyranny? The United States, the G7, and countries around the world have consistently answered the question by saying, yes, we will. We will say it again. Yes, again and again and again.
For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
OK, welcome along. Heck of a lot to go at tonight. The Labour Party launched its manifesto today. Sir Keir Starmer barely had time to get through the first page of that document when this happened.
My generation is being let down by the Labour Party and this manifesto. You say that you're offering change, but it's the same old Tory policies. We need better. The climate can't wait. The climate can't wait. We need a Green New Deal now.
Yeah. We gave up on being a party of protest 5 years ago. We want to be a party of power.
Everybody who actually pays tax was worried about how much Labour would want to wrestle from your pockets.
Been very, very clear, particularly in relation to working people, no increase in income tax, no increase in national insurance and no increase in VAT. Absolutely clearly set out in this manifesto.
Well, what's also clear is that there appears to be net tax rises of £8.6 billion. That means tax as a share of GDP will be 37.4% in 2028 to 29, the highest in history. We better hope those non-doms stick around, hadn't we? Or anyone with any money at all. I must say, I think there has been what appears to be a typical dose of left-wing bias in the establishment broadcast media so far this campaign. Last night, Mr Starmer forgot where he was, confusing Grimsby with Hull.
I was so impressed, and when I saw those apprentices here in Hull who had skilled jobs that they were proud of doing with the future.
Yeah, I mean, this might help him. Hull is a different part of the country entirely. It's in a different county, actually. The UK's longest single-span suspension bridge is between the two of those areas there. And that got zero traction in the media last night. Meanwhile, ITV managed to drag Ed Davey away from prattling around on some kind of assault course to get a midlife crisis makeover.
Walk down the catwalk.
He's giving it blue steel.
And then if you want to
come on, Ed, sucking your cheekbones. Do it. Let's do it. Clench your buttocks. No summer outfit is complete without a pair of sunglasses. Yeah.
Cool dad. Cool dad.
And also,
yeah,
how do you feel about
good.
Yeah. Amazing. Now, that is the perfect summer look.
And do you remember when Channel 4 decided to get Mr Starmer on Sunday Brunch, I think it was, to do a puff piece cooking a tandoori salmon?
Right, let's put it on.
Looks good.
Oh, I've broken that one.
Yeah. What do we think? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. Really good. What do you think?
Yeah.
Really good. Good?
Yeah. Really good.
I mean, I can only assume that Ofcom are all over this like a rash. Have ITV and Channel 4 invited Rishi Sunak and Nigel Farage to cook a tandoori salmon or prance around dressed like a divorced supply teacher? Here's how Farage was treated by the press when he had a milkshake thrown over him.
not the first time, and I think quite a humbling moment for Nigel Farage, who was here in Clacton to launch his local campaign.
Well, now we're hearing that apparently the BBC have also biffed Nigel Farage from a debate, instead preferring to platform the SNP. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's absolutely insane and appears to be an attempt to silence him, doesn't it? Especially in light of the polling data, which I will come on to. And we all know how ITV stitched Rishi Sunak up by releasing this pre-interview footage.
Prime Minister.
Gosh, hello.
Good to see you.
Very nice to see you. Hey, sorry to have
well,
kept
thank you. No, not at all. I know you've been in Normandy.
Yeah, it all just ran over. It was incredible, but it just ran over everything.
I'm sure it was
So apologies for keeping you.
No, not at all. I'm sure it was a powerful trip. I mean, so pertinent as well this year, you know, considering what's happened in Ukraine.
Yeah, which I haven't seen President Biden's remarks, but I think that's kind of the echo, I think, what he said.
Did you get to meet any of the veterans, or were you...
Oh, no,
did you
gosh,
just
lots.
have to do the ceremonial...
Lots. Over yesterday and
Okay,
today. Yeah, I've already spoke to almost everyone that was there, I hope.
I mean, of course, Rishi Sunak walked into that by actually leaving D-Day early to be interviewed by the bloke who won awards for going berserk about some cake during lockdown. So, what do you think? Is there a left-wing bias in the media that is clear to see at this election? Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We've got Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson. I am joined by Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey, and I've also got the wonderful journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. Alison, I'll start with you. Look, do you think that there is a left-wing bias in establishment media? We're seeing those kind of puff pieces of Sir Ed Davey not being asked anything about the post office scandal, instead being asked to clench his buttocks while he performs a fashion show.
I'm waiting for Ed to be bungee jumping from Big Ben. It's got to come, hasn't it? Look, Patrick, of course there's a left-wing bias. I mean, in the media. Does no one remember the night of the Brexit result when they all looked like their dog had died? You know, I mean, yeah, of course there is. And what we saw, in fact, last Friday in the BBC debate, which is similar to the debate that's going on tonight, 7 people. Every time Nigel Farage spoke, he spoke extremely cogently, made brilliant points. Not a smatter of applause in the audience. The camera kept cutting to some bloke who was scowling or rolling his eyes. It was absolutely blatant, and we do see that the whole time. And you just saw a clip of Sky when Farage again was assaulted, but, you know, someone threw a milkshake at him, and apparently this was humbling. It was a criminal assault. If that had happened to Keir Starmer or Angela Rayner, it would have all have been, you know, misogyny, racism, God knows what. So yes, there is a tremendous, and we've got this debate you mentioned next week, which is going to be Starmer, Sunak, that SNP guy. The SNP is going to be wiped out. I don't know why they're having him on, and the Lib Dems, who are trailing Reform by at least 5 or 6 points. And tonight, obviously, Reform has overtaken the Conservatives. So Nigel Farage has every right, and he said to me this week he wanted to gate crash that debate. Right, well, on that note, let's just introduce the poll, shall we, in case you've not seen it yet. So, Labour 37%, the Tories down to 18, and Reform up on 19. That is what Nigel is calling the inflection point. He's now saying that actually, and I'll put this to you, Sean, that it's a vote for the Conservatives that would make a Labour government more likely. You might as well just go out and vote for Reform.
Yeah, thank you for coming to me first. I really appreciate that. So, look, if this poll is true, we are devastated, let's be clear. And it's funny, when I speak to activists, they're loyal to the party, they want to campaign for the party, much like I have been doing. But there is some warm feeling towards Nigel, which is a trouble for Rishi. And I think what he'll need to do is make sure that he responds to that. Because the idea that you swing to the right, all that's nonsense. These are ordinary people who want speaking to in straight, plain sense. And I think that's Nigel's skill, and Rishi could take a leaf out that book. I still think I'm dubious about that poll. I'll accept that Reform are going gangbusters, but I'm dubious about that poll. But all this means is that Rishi should really focus in. But let's be clear, if you don't vote Conservative, you will end up with Labour. That's the reality.
You shouldn't be dubious about the poll, because if you strip out London and Scotland, Reform are ahead in every region and every age group over 40.
So I'll just bring you into this. I know we're trying to throw an umbrella over 2 different topics here, but when it comes to the media side of it, you know, we quite famously here at GBNews got in a little bit of strife because, you know,
we had a People's Forum with Rishi Sunak. It was offered up to Labour. We'll have to wait and see if they decide to take that up in the next 3 weeks or so. I can't help but wonder whether or not, you know, Sunday brunch or whatever that was this morning have offered the likes of Sunak and Farage the opportunity to prance around looking like a geography teacher.
Well, I think if Rishi Sunak wanted to go on Sunday breakfast or whatever it is and make tandoori salmon, they'd absolutely welcome him with open arms. So there's two things going on here. The first is that he's Prime Minister. So if he was spending 2 hours on a Sunday morning cooking salmon, I think a lot of people would be asking, don't you have better things to do with your time, like running the country? The other is that this might be a case of Sunak not having media advisors who are pushing for this kind of thing. With Ed Davey, he's not going to be...
he could be leader of the opposition.
He could be leader of the opposition, but he's not going to be Prime Minister. At the minute, he's trying to build his profile. Can you believe... I mean, a lot of people in the country don't know who Ed Davey is. A lot of people know Nigel Farage more than they know Ed Davey.
Can
I just say something? I have to disagree vehemently because they're all candidates in an election, and an election is a textbook exercise where you assume all of the candidates could be the Prime Minister.
But we're talking about the tandoori salmon, aren't we? That was before the election.
I'm sorry, all of the candidates could be the Prime Minister, so should be looked at equally. Unless they offered that to everybody, somebody needs to have a look at it. Can you imagine, to be fair, if we had Rishi Sunak on here cooking a tandoori salmon, there'd be outrage, wouldn't there? People would be reporting there's left, right and centre. Why haven't you got Ed Davey on cooking a stroganoff or something?
Well, why don't we have them all here cooking? You can line up some hobs on the side and get them all cooking.
I would love that. Our health and safety officer would not, sadly. Alison, look, just on you on this one now, just focusing directly on the Nigel Farage Reform Party overtake of the Tories in the polls. How significant a moment is this?
Well, the Tories are in free fall. Rishi's barely at the controls, but they're heading for the mountain. It's been absolutely clear to me, as I've said on the show before, for many, many months, that the Tory base has deserted the Conservatives in disgust, and there are millions of them who they hoped they could persuade back during this 3 weeks, and they're showing... Not only are they showing no sign of being wooed back, they are now moving over in great numbers to Reform.
Well, it is remarkable. We do have to wait and see how many seats that actually garners Reform, but of course their big shtick is, well, look, we want to be the opposition for, you know, the next 5 years or however long it lasts, and I suppose if they do end up with something like 19% of the vote, they've got a case for that. But what will actually happen on July the 4th, that is the one poll that matters, isn't it? But make sure that you tune in on Monday evening, because at 9 p.m. we have got a very special Patrick Christys Tonight Vote 2024 special. Well, we will have a live studio audience and lots of political big hitters, like former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. So you can also be a part of that audience as well. So go to gbnews.com to join us, and I'll be giving you a little bit more detail on all of that. So make sure you stay tuned. It'll be a good one. But now, it is time for the Great British Giveaway. Yes, your chance to make this summer really special with more than £16,000 worth of prizes to be won. That's £15,000 in cash and a whole host of treats. You have to be in it to win it. Here's all the details you need.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash, £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer, plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up, the family of Sabina Rizvi, a woman who was sadly gunned down in the street in a contract killing gone wrong, are demanding justice as her killer has been freed early. They're live on this show shortly. Their story is absolutely astonishing. I do recommend that you listen to it. Plus,
what you won't see in this manifesto is any plan that requires tax rises over and above those that we have already set out.
Yeah, OK, but Keir Starmer has announced more than £8 billion in tax rises, with the tax burden set to rise to its highest ever level. Has Labour fudged the numbers? We'll discuss all of that. But up next, is it right
for biological male swimmer Leah Thomas to be banned from the female category at the Olympics. It's going to be a good one, this, because former British Olympian Mara Yamauchi goes head-to-head with charity runner Clinique Frank. I'm reliably informed that these two have history. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today, we've got a veteran who endeavours to help those suffering from anxiety in all its various forms and manifestations.
Yes, over 3 decades, Simon Lee has established himself as a pioneer, seeking new ways to coach personal development and mental strength.
Now, look, there's this famous phrase, isn't it, that hard times create weak men and weak men create hard times. Is that the kind of philosophy that your work is based on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because as a child, I received a masterclass in how weak men create hard times.
Did you go through hard times as a kid?
We had 3 toxic men in the family, and they caused the family no end of grief, trauma and hardship. And at the time when you're going through it, you think, well, you can't help but fall into a victim mentality. You think, why me? Why am I going through this? But actually, I couldn't do what I do now without that masterclass.
Do you mind me asking who those men were?
Yep, it's fine. One of them was my stepfather.
Yeah.
One of them was my grandfather, and one of them was my uncle.
Right.
So they're all inner family members. And without exception, all of them, outside of the family doors, wanted to put themselves across as moral pillars of society.
How do you turn that story around and be the man that you are today and turn what you went through into a positive? How do you do that?
You've established that pretty much you can, choose to be a victim of your circumstance or use it as inspiration to do better and say, you know what, when I'm older, for example, if you had a bad childhood, I want to make sure my kids get the kind of childhood I didn't have. So how do you relay that to the people you mentor now, I guess?
What we do, I set up something called Unlimited Courage. We talk about giving men a primary aim of courage. So we bring in philosophies such as Stoicism, our own 7 Courages, Bushido, and they love it. They love it. And I must admit, when I found it, I felt like I'd found the Holy Grail.
Wow.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually, it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Coming up, I do speak to a family seeking justice for their murdered daughter after her killer was released. But first, is it right that trans swimmer Leah Thomas has been banned from competing against women at the Olympics? It's time for the head-to-head. So, biological male Leah Thomas had a demand to compete against women in the Paris Olympics next month, and that now has been rejected, thanks to a crucial lawsuit. Thomas had asked the Court of Arbitration for Sport to overturn a World Aquatics ban on biological males competing against women after declaring it invalid and unlawful. But the CAS, as it's known, ruling concluded that Thomas wasn't entitled to engage with eligibility to compete in the World Aquatics competitions. Thomas first rose to prominence after becoming the first transgender athlete to win the NCAA college title in 2022, beating 3 United States Olympic silver medalists in the process. So is it right for biological male swimmers to be banned from competing against women at the Olympics? Well, to go head-to-head on this, I am joined by former British Olympian Mara Yamauchi and charity runner Glenique Frank. Both of you, thank you very, very much. Mara, I'll start with you. Is this the right ruling, do you think?
Yes, definitely. Males should not compete in the female category in any sport at any level. Males have massive physical advantages compared to females. It's therefore unfair and unsafe for females. And the female category is for females to enjoy fair and safe competition amongst ourselves. Males do not belong in the female category under any circumstances.
Glenique, I will ask you about this now. Do you think that that's fair enough, that males have no place in female categories?
Well, obviously, because they're biological males. But when you're a transgender person, and I'm looking at the story again about, she should have started transitioning before she was 12. And let me tell you now that a 12-year-old cannot make that decision because they haven't even got right to vote. And also, if a 12-year-old says to their parents, I want to be an elite athlete one day, can I have a transition, start transitioning now and have surgery? So obviously, it's a bit silly. And I do agree with Mara that there's no ruling yet to include transgender athletes. I know World Paralympics is starting, and I've seen their statement, that they're thinking about including transgender athletes because, on my view, what happened to me, again, there's no category for me. There's other or non-binary.
Just for clarity, if you don't, can I just cut in here, just because we are also on radio as well, Glenique. So I think it's important just so we get to know each other a bit better as well. Yeah. That you, biological man who competes against women in charity runs, right? Is that right? Would that be fair?
I don't compete against women. I'm competing in the charity event. I'm not an elite runner. And let me tell you now that my testosterone levels are very low, probably lower than some of the elite women who have actually, I'm watching the European Championships, the Diamond League. I follow sport. I'm a personal trainer. I admire all athletes, and I agree with and I support biological men and women. But the thing is, we need to have 4 categories: male, female, transgender, male, female. But we win our own accolades. We're not competing against another biological person.
I will come back to you. Mara, yeah, go on.
Patrick, I need to correct Glenn on 2 things there. One is he said, I agree with Mara about there's no ruling.
This is right, Mara.
That's
this
completely
is right. You're already...
Well done.
Okay, right, both of you stop. Stop.
My life.
Right, Glenique, I'm going to ask you to stop. I'm really sorry about this, but otherwise we're going to have to just knock the whole thing on the head. So,
that's fine.
Mara, one at a time.
Glenn is a man. Glenn said, I agree with Mara that there's been no ruling.
Get the name right, Mara.
This is false.
Get the name right.
World Aquatics spent a year creating an open category for transgender swimmers. They had no takers. The second thing I want to put is Glenn said he doesn't compete against female athletes.
Sorry, Glenique, can we let Mara speak, and then I'll promise you I will go straight back to you. As soon as Mara's finished, I will go straight back to you, OK? All right, go on, Mara.
OK.
Glenn said he doesn't compete against female athletes. This is a complete lie. Glenn has competed 3 times in the London Marathon in the female category and in the Tokyo Marathon in the female category last year. All 3 times in the London Marathon was against UK athletics rules.
No, it's not.
OK, Glenique, it is now your... Right, Glenique, it is now your turn.
You know what, Mara, it's not, actually, and my name's Glenique.
It is against the rules.
Please have,
London Marathon has a full UK athletics licence.
I appreciate you. Keep
right, Mara, stop.
And let me tell you now, the CEO of London said to me that I'm a charity runner. I can enter under any category. I'm not
in the mass race. The mass race falls under UK athletics licence.
OK. I'm going to ask. Let's get it off. Let's get it off our personal topics now, which obviously is a variety of different roles. Let's try to just zone in a bit on the issue here, which would be a biological male competing against women in the Olympics.
I agree with Mara. Actually, you're not listening. That's not official yet. That we have to have permission as the LGBTQ community. Yet again, we have to get permission to be humans. But I'm just saying that why can't we have 4 categories? Male, female, transgender, male, female. Simple.
Okay. Mara, would you be up for that?
Easy.
Yeah, this is just incoherent gibberish from Glenn. World Aquatics already provided a third open category. They have no takers for it.
And I'm going to sue Piers Morgan because I tell you now, you didn't get my consent.
Okay, I'm not actually quite sure what that's about, but sorry, Mari, why would it be incoherent gibberish, Mara, for 4 categories? I suppose that wouldn't affect biological women like you, Mara, would it? If we had an Olympics, a trans Olympics.
What I'm saying is incoherent gibberish. Is he's calling for extra categories. World Aquatics, have already provided a third category for transgender swimmers. They had no takers for it. This
because there's not many of us, Mara.
William Thomas only want to compete in the female category against women.
I entered under non-binary just to keep you happy, and there was only 91 athletes out of 25,000. There's not many people that are...
About the London Marathon this year, you ran in the female category.
Right, I'm just going to cut in now because there's another issue at play here. There's another issue. There's another issue at play here. There's another issue at play here, which is not actually just about the competition itself and the times that people set. It's also what goes on around that. And Clinique, when you take part in sporting events alongside women, would you then use the women's changing rooms as well? And do you think it would be OK for Leah Thomas to use those women's changing rooms? Because for some people, that's an issue.
Why are you so naive? Why are you so naive? Obviously, I'll use the women's changing area because I haven't got a penis. Do you understand? How can I go into the men's changing area? Because I might get beaten up. I am a woman. I'm a transgender woman, should I say? You know what I mean? I don't offend. I'm not out to hate anybody. I don't hate you, Mara. I educate. I don't hate.
Okay.
But the thing is, we need to be humans. Let's all celebrate sports.
I'll give you the word on that.
Women athletes that are beating the men, the elite men.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So what are you going to say about that?
All right. Well,
what about bodybuilders?
Okay. Let's put a pin in that now, Clinique.
What are they now? Are they not men?
Yeah, I think you've made a series of points. So, Mara, can I just ask you just on that issue, because I don't know exactly what Leah Thomas's situation is, if I could put it like that. But I know there were some concerns from other athletes raised about the fact that they were in the women's changing rooms as well. There's a lot that goes on around sport. That's not just about the times that are being set itself, is there, Mara?
Yeah, I would say concerns is a massive understatement. Young female swimmers like Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon had to change naked in the female changing rooms with William Thomas. He had his full male genitals. This was a traumatizing experience for them. And a male, whether he's got male genitals or whether he's had surgery, is male, lives his whole life male, will die male, does not belong under any circumstances in female changing rooms and toilets.
OK. All right, both of you.
Okay, I didn't know that he hadn't had gender surgery downstairs, but let me tell you now that...
It's irrelevant whether men have had surgery or not. They don't belong in the women's changing room.
Gender reassignment, Mara, let me finish. You won't even know that they were men because they look more women than you. So, and you also
I think that's a bit offensive, to say the least.
It's a woman
is an adult human female, not a man who puts on women's clothes.
All right. Look, thank you very, very much. Thank you. It's run its course. But thank you very much, both of you. Clearly not a lot of agreement there. I'm not sure we're likely to get it, but I do appreciate you both coming on. Former British Olympian Mari Mauchi there, charity runner Clinique Frank. Right, coming up, as the Green Party pledges to no longer detain illegal immigrants while over 80 migrants are due to be deported to Rwanda, they've been released on bail. Is this a dystopian vision into our future? Director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah, attempts to defend the open border madness shortly. And get ready to cringe.
Come on, 4th of July, don't forget to vote. 21 days to go. We got 21 days to go.
Decline. OK, but next, the family of Sabina Rizvi, a woman gunned down in the street in a contract killing gone wrong, demand justice as her killer is freed early. They're live after this.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GBNews. Tomorrow, well, there'll be some sunshine, but be prepared for some heavy showers and gusty winds at times as well. We've seen some blustery conditions today across the west from this area of low pressure. It's been bringing in these weather fronts which have been bringing in outbreaks of rain, spreading steadily now to northern Scotland and across eastern England. It will turn a little drier through the night, that rain tending to move away from much of Wales, the Midlands and southern England. A few showers will follow in behind. The wind's easing a touch, but still quite breezy. And a very mild night, not really for the time of year, but certainly compared to most nights of late. Temperatures holding up in double figures. So it won't be as chilly first thing tomorrow morning. There'll be some sunshine over the Midlands and parts of eastern England, but still quite breezy along the south coast. And it won't take long before the showers get going. Certainly, of course, Wales expects some showers through the early part of the morning, coming into western Scotland, northwest England. Parts of Northern Ireland may start dry. A different start to the day here compared to today. But across northern Scotland, a very different day here, because after a largely fine day today, there's going to be much more cloud, rain and a fairly brisk wind, and that may stick around across the far north of Scotland for most of the day. Elsewhere, we'll be chasing the showers through. There will be some sunshine, but the downpours will never be too far away. All areas having that kind of really changeable day. 1 minute it's fine, 10 minutes later it's chucking it down with rain. The showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze. And when the sun's out, well, it will feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures still below average for the time of year, but a little bit higher than many days this week. It's showery right through the weekend. Yes, again on Saturday, some sunshine, but some heavy thundery showers likely over central and eastern parts, some slow-moving downpours further north as well. And it stays blustery in places with further sunshine and showers on Sunday. Goodbye.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
I had weight loss surgery to enjoy more time with my children.
I did it to help improve my type 2 diabetes.
I did it to enjoy long walks and to feel more healthy.
I did it to finally enjoy holidays.
I did it to be healthy.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, a killer who has refused to reveal the identities of two men who helped him murder a young woman is back on the streets of Britain. GB News can reveal that Paul Asbury's release has left his victim's family appalled, shocked and traumatised. He was jailed for life in 2004 with a minimum term of 20 years for murdering Sabina Rizvi. But his two accomplices remain unknown. He's refusing to give them up. Sabina, who was 25, was shot in the head outside Bexley Heath Police Station in South East London in March 2003. Asbury was also convicted of the attempted murder of her boyfriend, Mark Williams, a passenger in the car. A judge later described the murder as being akin to a contract killing. Now, during an inquest into Sabina's death, Asbury and Sabina had got caught up in the middle of a plan to shoot Williams, who was a convicted drug dealer. Asbury refused to name two other men involved in that murder after claiming that one was dead and another was now living overseas and that naming him would put his life in danger. Well, I'm joined now by Sabina's brother, Sony, and her mother, Ifat. Thank you very much for joining us here. It's great to have you on the show. It's much appreciated. Would you mind just explaining to us...
Thank you for having us.
Well, it's just explaining to us, please, really, the trauma that your family's gone through and how it feels to know that murderer is out and about again.
It's totally unjustified, and I do think that they have undermined the judge who sentenced him, because the judge's comments were that he has to serve a minimum of 20 years strict tariff, right, before he could actually submit a parole application. And we are just totally devastated because, as you know, that I have been campaigning for the last 21 years to have Sabina's inquest, right? Inquest resumed, because normally an inquest takes place within 6 months. Of somebody who's convicted, but her inquest had never been had taken place, and it was closed under the table without even notifying us. So whilst in 2019 February I was able to achieve the inquest being resumed as Article 2, here we are February 2019, right? The inquest has been resumed, and Paul Ashbury was approached as to be an interested person to help the judge in the inquest. He refused. But soon after, right, I'm notified by the National Probation Service that he has submitted an application, a parole application, to be released in an open prison. I was devastated.
Well,
right?
I can imagine, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
it was devastating.
Could I just ask on this? Sorry to interrupt, but do you think that there should be some form of law, maybe, that if somebody who does kill people refuses to give up the names of their accomplices, that maybe they should never be allowed out?
They should not be. There is already a law, right? And I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Helen's Law. Helen's Law came about. It received a royal assent. Any prisoners who's withholding information in regard to the victims, right? They should not be released, but that actually only goes as far as children and remains. And but there is a clause in there. It does say if a prisoner is withholding information, they should not be released, right? Like I said, that when the parole application did go in, I did challenge that, and I did speak to Marie is Helen's mum, and she said to me, in fact, no, it cannot happen. You've got to sort of go down the route of submitting this, because Marie was not able to get the perpetrator detained into prison because the law was not there. I mean, Robert Backfield, the Minister of Justice for Conservative, he actually supported Marie, and he initiated the Helen's Law, and it received the royal assent in November 2020. Right, so it was already in process, and but however, no matter what I was submitting in regarding to the challenges, right, everything was being ignored. I appealed as well, that was ignored, and the law is there. I mean, the thing is, my personal first-hand experience is there is so many things in place for victim family, right? The restoration program, which I signed on in 2005, never has taken place. I did right in the beginning say I want to confront Paul Ashbury when he was convicted. Never has taken place.
So could I just ask you now if it's possible and you're okay to do it? Would you like to try to address Paul Ashbury, directly? In this sense, now, if he was here, look, what would you say to him?
I would want him to disclose the name of the people. At one level he says that, another level he doesn't. I would want him to name those people, and we did ask that during the parole hearing, and he said that he was concerned about his safety. Right, but there's one person he's stated that he is no more. He's died, right? So naming a person who's already died and he's been buried, how can he be under threat from him? So why doesn't he mention him? You know? And also, the thing is, there's so many things I cannot disclose because I have given an undertaking in regard, which I do believe is completely outrageous. Right, here is a convict, right? He has been assessed, and that should be made public because he is on license. He has taken somebody's life, right?
Yeah.
So why are they disclosing everything about us with the victim's family, but everything in regarding to a person on license who's been convicted for murder is all secret?
Yeah. No,
We can't
yeah.
with anybody.
No.
Right? The public should know, right? He's a convict. He's on life license, right? And it doesn't protect the public by keeping, all secrets.
All too often. I mean, this is a really extraordinary case. It's an extreme example of it, but all too often I cover stories on this show where it seems as though the person who's got the most protection is actually the person who's committed the crime, as opposed to anybody else. Look, we're going to have to end it there, but I would just really like to ask you as well, just to come back on, let's just try and keep hold of this, because you're obviously not going to let this go. You've not let it go for the last 21 years, and I would really like to just try to follow this through a bit with you. So thank you very much for coming on tonight and spending so much time with us and enlightening us.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and thank you for listening.
That's all right. OK. Anything we can do. All right, thank you very much. That's it for Rizvi there. Thank you so much. Now, we've got the Met Police Commander, Stephen Clayman, who has told us, firstly, our thoughts and sympathies are with Ms Rizvi's family. Despite the passage of time, the loss of a loved one in such violent circumstances is devastating. Part of the evidence considered during the inquest related to Ms Rizvi's interactions with police in the lead-up to her tragic death, and the coroner determined there was insufficient evidence to conclude any Met officer had deliberately or inadvertently passed information to the assailants, or that the Met knew or ought to have known there was a risk to her life. The details relating to any death following police contracts are rightly scrutinised. It is my sincere hope that the evidence heard during the inquest will bring clarity to the circumstances of the heartbreaking loss suffered by Ms Rizvi's loved ones. I've also got a statement from the MOJ which says, the decision to release Paul Asprey was made by the Independent Parole Board after a thorough risk assessment. He's now subject to probation, supervision and strict conditions for the rest of his life and can only be recalled to prison if he breaks them. Right, coming up, we'll have exclusive reaction to the completely and utterly pointless seven-way leaders debate as we cross live to get in amongst the spin room. Plus...
So when someone laughed last night, my dad would have turned in his grave.
I mean, Keir Starmer doesn't realise that we're laughing at him, does he? But I will show you Keir Starmer's furious reaction to those laughs. But next, scores of Rwandan migrants have been released on bail as our open border crisis worsens. But actually, the Greens want to just throw our borders open. I'll go head-to-head with the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr Krish Kandia. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
98-year-old veteran Ken Cook shared his memories of D-Day at a special event in Harrogate. As a former Green Howards private, Ken was part of an armada of vessels carrying more than 150,000 Allied soldiers to France. And he was just a teenager when his regiment landed on Gold Beach in Normandy.
Everybody was telling us, the officers and the sergeants, corporals, to get off the beach, lads, quick, because there's some more stuff coming behind us, and they had to get onto the beach as well. All our equipment and tanks and whatever, artillery, they were following up behind us, so we had to get out of the way and get into the countryside and make as much ground as we could on that first day.
Ken survived that harrowing first day, but many didn't. Around 10,000 Allied troops were either killed or injured. But their sacrifice, along with the bravery of those that lived, changed the course of history and resulted in the end of World War II.
Somebody had to do it, and so we did it. We did our job, and that's it.
Ken is one of the last surviving members of York's Normandy veterans. Part of an ever-dwindling band of brothers who fought on D-Day, he's attending the 80th commemoration in France.
A very emotional occasion this time, because There's not many of us left now.
Remembering the fallen, Ken's wish is that long after he's gone, we still never forget those who gave their tomorrow for our today.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Still to come, I'll bring you our live reaction to ITV's 7-way election debate, which is due to finish in the next few minutes, so don't bother watching it. I'm reliably informed that it's rubbish anyway, but what we talk to you about will not be, so there we go. Anyway, first, the Green Party launched their election manifesto yesterday with pledges to scrap the nukes, end immigration detention unless there is a public safety danger, give 16-year-olds the vote, introduce a 4-day working week, legalise assisted dying and remove all oil and gas subsidies. And Greens leader, co-leader I think it is, Carla Denyer, made their party's position on immigration very clear in tonight's debate.
I think it's shameful when some politicians scapegoat the people who become our neighbours, our friends, our colleagues, to distract from their chronic underinvestment in public services. The solution isn't scapegoating or pulling up the drawbridge. The solution is investing in our communities to make sure everyone has access to the services they need.
OK, well, it's especially pertinent given the fact that yesterday around 50 people who were scheduled to go to Rwanda were just released on immigration bail. So it does appear as though they've essentially just been waved through. I'm very pleased to say I'm joined now by the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandaya. Dr. Krish is with us, I think. Yes, any second. There we go. Oh, good stuff. All right, thank you very much. Look, under this policy, if a jihadi who was on an international wanted list got in a small boat, ditched their documents in the Channel and landed in Britain, they would be allowed freedom in Britain before we'd have the chance to look at them, wouldn't they? I'm not sure he's there.
You can hear me. I'm here.
I can hear you, but you are very still. Sorry about this. Go on, take it away.
Sorry. Well, I want to say I thought you did a great job in the previous interview. You showed great dignity and respect to the victim's mother. And I know that you do that for ordinary people. And that's what we would say we ought to offer that same dignity and respect to people that are arriving here, fleeing war and terror, that we shouldn't lock them up, that we should listen to their case. We believe in the idea that people are innocent until proven guilty. So why detain someone who may have a very valid reason?
I suppose the problem with that is we'd also be offering kindness and compassion to Ahmed Ali, who stabbed an elderly man to death in Hartlepool despite travelling through 13 European countries. The Bedreddin brothers, who were part of a northeast grooming gang. Ernesto Elliott, who was taken off a deportation flight, killed someone with a machete. Lawangeen Abdul Ramzai stabbed a 21-year-old man to death. Abdul Azidi, the Clapham acid attacker. So you would be lumping everyone in with those, wouldn't you?
I don't think that's fair, Patrick, because the Green statement was very clear unless there was a clear...
Which we won't know about, will we? Because they'll ditch the documents. That's the point, isn't it? It would be denying us the opportunity to find out, wouldn't it?
Well, if you have found someone to detain them, then you have enough time to be able to investigate their circumstances. So give them the chance. Give them the chance to prove themselves innocent. Why detain them without even listening? That was part of the illegal migration bill, that we weren't even going to listen to their asylum claim. We were going to close our ears to that and then ship them off to Rwanda without even listening to their claim. And then when they get to Rwanda, they can never make a claim to be here. Surely, Patrick, if something terrible were to happen in the UK that we couldn't live safely here and you and I had to flee to somewhere else, I've got no one that I know in France, but I've got lots of family that I know in Malaysia. So I wouldn't go to the closest geographical country. I'd go to where I had connections.
And would you ditch all your personal information and not tell anyone who you were en route and maybe try your arm at 13 other European countries before you got there? You probably wouldn't, would you? Because you'd be innocent. You'd be genuinely fleeing war.
I think you could distinguish between those that have had their papers stolen from them by traffickers or those that have lost it. But you're right, there might be some that you might want to detain, and you could use appropriate filters to make sure that you filtered out the right people.
What would those be?
Blanket.
What would those be? Yeah, why are those filters? Because presumably you're against things like dental checks or fingerprints.
Oh, I'm not against dental checks or fingerprints, sure. Look, if someone's genuinely lost their papers, you have to find another way to identify them. I'm open to that. But if someone has had their papers stolen from them, that's very different. So for me, this is like using those old fishing nets where you actually capture dolphins in the same time as you're capturing tuna.
Where do they live, though? Because that's the other aspect to it, isn't it? If we don't detain them, then, I mean, the Green Party... Formerly in 2015, Natalie Bennett became a bit of a laughingstock. She couldn't answer how they were going to pay for housing. I mean, I wonder if we're back here again, aren't we? Where would we house all of these people?
Well, the Conservative Party's been spending £8 million a day keeping people in hotels. I don't think that's appropriate. I was part of the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Maybe you were as well. We welcomed 3 families to come and live with us. I know members of the public that would be willing to welcome people into their homes.
Were they women and children, by any chance?
They were women and children, but also a husband as well, who was medically sick, and so he was allowed to come as well. Yeah. So I think we have hosting programs that would take some of them. I think others would be happy to work given the opportunity. They don't want to sponge off the state, but they're currently not allowed to work. And if you're not allowed to work, you don't have any other option except to take up the state's opportunity to live in a hotel. So I think there are cheaper, fairer, more humane ways that we could help people to live independently.
All right, fair enough. Well, hey, look, people can make their own minds up, and indeed they will do when they turn up to vote. But that was the director and founder of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandai there. Thank you very, very much. We contacted the Home Office earlier today. He told us that their position is that they are not unlawfully detaining people and would not provide an ongoing commentary on all of that. Coming up, we will cross live to the spin room, bring you all the reaction and analysis after a 7-way leadership debate. We'll get the views of top MPs, top pollsters, our political editor, Christopher Hope. Make sure you stay tuned.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow, well, there'll be some sunshine, but be prepared for some heavy showers and gusty winds at times as well. We've seen some blustery conditions today across the west from this area of low pressure. It's been bringing in these weather fronts which have been bringing in outbreaks of rain, spreading steadily now to northern Scotland and across eastern England. It will turn a little drier through the night, that rain tending to move away from much of Wales, the Midlands and southern England. A few showers will follow in behind. The wind's easing a touch, but still quite breezy. And a very mild night, not really for the time of year, but certainly compared to most nights of late. Temperatures holding up in double figures. So it won't be as chilly first thing tomorrow morning. There'll be some sunshine over the Midlands and parts of eastern England, but still quite breezy along the south coast. And it won't take long before the showers get going. Certainly, of course, Wales expects some showers through the early part of the morning, coming into western Scotland, northwest England. Parts of Northern Ireland may start dry. A different start to the day here compared to today. But across northern Scotland, very different day here, because after a largely fine day today, there's going to be much more cloud, rain and a fairly brisk wind, and that may stick around across the far north of Scotland for most of the day. Elsewhere, we'll be chasing the showers through. There will be some sunshine, but the downpours will never be too far away. All areas having that kind of really changeable day. 1 minute it's fine, 10 minutes later it's chucking it down with rain. The showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze. And when the sun's out, well, it will feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures still below average for the time of year, but a little bit higher than many days this week. It's showery right through the weekend. Yes, again on Saturday, some sunshine, but some heavy thundery showers likely over central and eastern parts, some slow-moving downpours further north as well. And it stays blustery in places with further sunshine and showers on Sunday. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're making this summer funner, with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
well, it's all kicked off at the completely pointless 7-way leadership debate.
You're promising tax cuts when you've already done that once and crashed the economy once. You've already done that once.
We'll take you live to the spin room, where we'll be joined by big hitters from all the major parties and, of course, our political editor, Christopher Hope. On my panel tonight is the Telegraph's Alison Pearson, Tory peer Lord Bailey, and journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. Oh, yes, I'm prepared to cringe.
Come on, 4th of July. Don't forget to vote. 21 days to go. We got 21 days to go.
It's all to play for this hour. Let's get stuck in. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. OK, so we have just had that 7-way leadership debate, and we've compiled some key moments for you.
NHS has two fundamental problems. One, Penny mentioned, caseloads up by 43%. Why? Because we have an exploding population. All of our public services are under pressure because the population has increased by 6 million since the Conservatives came to power. It's impossible to keep up.
OK, so, yep, just before they went to air on that debate, Nigel Farage's Reform Party overtook the Conservatives by 1 point to become the party of opposition. Then Penny Mordaunt claimed that the Tories will bring migration numbers down.
Whatever the public think about the numbers, what they want from their government and their parliament is to control access of foreign nationals to the UK. We can ensure that each year the numbers come down, and on our plans, we are due to halve that number, halve migration, by next summer. With us, you get a cap and a plan. With Labour, they have no cap, no number and no plan. OK.
There is an absolutely hilarious moment as well, which I'll show you later on, where Penny Mordaunt says you can trust Rishi Sunak on immigration because of his record. Nigel Farage and indeed the entire audience laughed. Then Angela Rayner, Penny Mordaunt and Daisy Cooper came to blows over the economy and tax.
You're promising tax cuts when you've already done that once and crashed the economy once. You've already done that once. But we've made it absolutely
working household.
You know what? When it comes to tax, the Conservatives have made a very clear choice to increase taxes on working people, on struggling families. That's happened more and more times. You have raised tax to the highest level in almost 80 years. What Liberal Democrats have said is that we would not increase taxes on struggling families during the cost of living crisis, but we would look to the big banks, to the big tech companies who can pay a little bit more to fund our public services.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that I can take you now to Christopher Hope, our political editor, who is in the spin room for us. Christopher, thank you very much. What have you got for us? Who have you got for us?
Patrick, I've got with me Andrew Mitchell, who's the one of the cabinet ministers and the spokesman of the Tory party tonight. Andrew Mitchell, quickly your reaction. You're now third in the polls according to the Times. Is that a disaster for the Tory party?
No, well, the polls are all over the place, and this is actually my 11th general election, Chris, you'll be amazed to hear, and I've seen polls that are so wrong during the campaigns, and also on the ground, we're not getting this on the doorstep. I meet very few people who are actually going to vote Reform, and I meet an enormous number of people who have not yet made up their minds, and I think they will only do that towards the end of the campaign. And the great thing about the next 3 weeks is we have time to dissect Labour's proposals, because after July the 4th there will either be Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer in number 10. Those are the only two.
Others in your party are warning about a Labour supermajority. Do you think you can overhaul that?
Well, as I say, I don't believe the polls on the ground. What we've got to do is to set out why the points we make in our manifesto are right, why Labour is trying to say as little as possible to get into number 10 on July the 4th. We need to expose that and show that they have no plan for immigration, and also that their tax policies will lead to Britain being the highest taxed country we've had since 1945, when Clement Attlee was Prime Minister.
Why do people laugh at your party when Penny Mordaunt said the schools are world class, which they are according to some measures? They all laugh at that statement.
Well, you know, in elections, people do funny things, but the fact is she was right. You know, under the Conservatives, we have become one of the top of the tree when it comes to reading and writing and counting well. And that's a tremendous achievement and a huge contrast to what has happened, for example, in Scotland, where the figures have all gone in the opposite direction.
Nigel Farage said that 1 in 30 people on the streets in Britain today walking around have rioted in the past 2 years. That is surely an indictment of your party's immigration policy.
Well, it's true that migration, legal immigration, has been very high. We've had an enormous number of people coming from Ukraine, coming from Afghanistan, who helped us in the fighting there, coming from Hong Kong. I mean, that is why the figures are so high. Which of those should we be turning back and not honour our duty to them? And also, the figures show that over the next year or so, there's going to be a huge reduction in migration, and that is because of the steps that we have taken. But it also shows that the high immigration figures are because Britain did its duty to Ukrainians suffering from the war and Russia's invasion, from people coming into Hong Kong fleeing away from Chinese oppression, and also others who we owed.
So it will come down, you're saying there, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. It will come down over the next year. That's what all the forecasters are saying. Migration is very high, but the reason it's very high is because of the people Britain quite rightly was helping. We have always been a place where you can come and receive sanctuary.
But not in volume.
But the volume is caused by these crises, which I mentioned. But in terms of stopping illegal migration, we have a plan. It is to make sure that the flights take off to Rwanda. The Labour Party has no plan at all.
And quickly, Nigel Farage talks about tax breaks for married couples. In the old days, your party was in favour of that kind of thing. Why aren't you now?
Well, we are the only party you can trust on tax. We set out very clearly what our plans will be. Labour's plans are all over the place. They would definitely make us the highest tax we've been since, as I said, the end of the Second World War. And, you know, there's an old saying in politics, cats meow, dogs bark, and Labour puts up taxes.
You're that certain that also the Tories might lose this election quite seriously. Are you sleeping well at night?
Well, I've been through so many elections that I know the right thing to do is to enjoy engaging with your constituents on the ground, doing the right thing and trusting that they will make the right decision on July the 4th.
And you're sure they will, because you're so far behind? I mean, how can you're 4-0 down and it's half-time in the football.
I'm taking nothing for granted. I'm working flat out to win the support of my constituents, and I shall continue to do that till 10 o'clock on polling day.
Well, Andrew Mitchell, thank you. That's Andrew Mitchell there with a bullish statement there from the Tory spokesman here in the spin room, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. Christopher, thank you very, very much. Now, we are going to be going back to that spin room with our political editor, Christopher Hope, as he tries to grab various people who are all going to be telling us that their side won. But let's get the thoughts of my panel tonight. It is the Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. I'm just going to play a clip straight off the bat. We'll react to it, which is Nigel Farage standing up, talking at this seven-way leadership debate. Let's just hear a bit from Mr Farage.
I'm Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. Just before we came on air, we overtook the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. We are now the opposition to Labour.
Yeah, and Penny Mordaunt as well was getting into a bit of a head-to-head with Nigel about immigration. Nigel was saying to her, well, look, hang on a minute, how on earth could anybody trust the Conservatives? He thinks, Reform think that this is the immigration election. How do you think Penny Mordaunt's response went down with the audience? I think we can show you.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
that's fine, I'm happy.
Figures out today.
OK, Alison, what do you make of those clips that we've just seen there, really? I mean, open laughter, it appears, at the record of this Prime Minister.
This is what we're seeing, Patrick, raucous, disbelieving laughter. Where Nigel Farage is cutting through is until recently talking about immigration and these appalling, huge numbers that are coming in that are overwhelming public services. That made you unpleasant, far right. People are no longer accepting that label. I won't accept that label because my kids are in their 20s and they're struggling to get affordable accommodation. People are experiencing this across the country. And Andrew Mitchell, to whom Christopher Hope was speaking, was saying, oh, these high immigration figures are to do with people coming in from Ukraine and Hong Kong. No, they're not. 50% of them are dependents of people coming in. Students bringing their mum, their auntie, their dog. We have been made an absolute joke. And why Nigel Farage came the top in the YouGov Snap poll of the last debate on last Friday and will almost certainly come top again tonight is because he is speaking truth and the other six are colluding in the conventional lies of which people are absolutely sick.
OK, go on.
My side won. Listen.
Which side is that?
Listen, I think there's two things. The immigration figures, I think all of the current political firmament need to take some responsibility for that. Because if you're Rishi Sunak, you've had to battle very hard to make any changes at all. And Labour have fought you every step of the way. Their outside supporters fought the Prime Minister every step of the way as well. So I think it's not just Rishi who has big questions to answer on immigration, it's Labour. The other piece I'll say about immigration as well, they've always used the term safe and secure routes. Now, I spoke to a group of young people on the way here, and they said to me that seems like more people. They're in favour of more people. Yeah. But it sounds like more people. So I think one of the real features that's missing from this whole campaign is Labour being asked the tough questions.
OK, what do you make of the fact that just before that debate there, Farage's party became, I suppose, the party of opposition, as it were. He's being very, very strong now. He's being really bullish when it comes to immigration and the impact that's having on people. I don't think people can now call him fringe or far right, or can they, in your view?
Well, I think clearly Nigel Farage and the Reform Party are appealing to a group of voters, and this is a group of voters who feel neglected. They feel let down by the Conservative government. They feel like none of the parties are telling them the truth. There is a huge issue with trust just hemorrhaging in politics. I was out in Warrington on Tuesday talking to voters, and what was overwhelmingly clear to me is that they didn't trust any party.
Yeah, that's right.
And those, there was some support for Labour. That's not surprising. Warrington is a red town, or at least Warrington North is. But absolutely, people don't like the way politicians talk to them, and they don't believe they're telling them the truth. The thing that people like about Nigel Farage is they think he is telling them the truth. I disagree. I think he is using immigration as a convenient
way to explain away all the problems in the country. The truth is the government have underfunded public services. The truth is they've not built enough houses, they've not put enough money into the NHS, they're not thinking long-term about social care.
I suppose the argument will be, how can we when we've got so many people coming every single year?
But even before that, they weren't. You know, they were not thinking long-term about the problems in this country. And actually, we are dependent on immigration, especially in health and social care. We have an ageing population. We need staff to look after those people.
All right, we will come back to this. It's going to be a bit chaotic this hour, as it always is, because we've got these leadership debates coming out of every single orifice at the moment, it seems. But we're going to take you back there now with Christopher Hope, our political editor. There he is. Fantastic. Christopher, you've got another spin room to wander around.
Yeah, I'm shocked by the mention of orifices this late at night, Patrick, but I'll show you around the spin room. Follow me this way. It's your favourite part of the day, isn't it, Patrick? Here we are. So this is where all the journalists have been sitting, doing their work. Now some of them are here working hard, writing tomorrow's front pages. It's a bit more of a low-key spin room compared to previous ones, because it's not quite the same as the leader, as Starmer versus Sunak, as we had previously. But yeah, this is where everyone's battling. There are desks here where journalists are writing their stories for tomorrow. Over there's the BBC. Thanks, Ollie. Over here, Ollie, this way. And then we'll come around here. There's some Labour spokesmen wandering around. This way, down there is the Coronation Street set, Patrick. We'll go there later if you want to, but there may not be time. And then this way, thank you, Ollie, this way, you'll see all the interviews being taking place in other channels. Of course, no one watches them because they love GB News most of all. You'll see here David Davis there. He's speaking to, I think, Good Morning Britain, I think, on a pre-record. Here's the Brexit Party spokesman, David Bull. Yeah, so it's kind of intense, hot place. The idea of orifices, though, is not very pleasant, so we'll move on from that. But no, it's a fun place to be and a fun place to work.
Fantastic. Christopher, look, thank you very much. And I demand to see the set of Coronation Street later on as well. So you shouldn't have mentioned that because you're giving yourself some extra work. But we'll be going back to Christopher, excuse me, because he's going to be grabbing some of those people there, left, right and centre, to talk us through what was going on at that particular leadership debate. But there were a load more things to discuss. There was the NHS that came up, there was education as well, and tax. Whether or not you think, after that Labour manifesto that came out today, do you buy it when it comes to the actual taxation promises that they've got? So, look, when I come back, we're going to be taking you back to the heart of the action. My wonderful panel are going to be up, and we have got a heck of a lot to talk about. I'll see you in a tick.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The woke be with you these days, not the force be with you. And Star Wars, you know, it was the one thing as a kid that brought me and my brother together pretty close, and I love it with all my heart. But ever since Disney took it over, this diversity, equity and inclusion has run rampant throughout it. And actually we've had the actress from the latest Star Wars spin-off, a series on Disney, actually saying that making white people cry was actually what she wanted to do. Have a listen.
When people watch The Hate You Give, what do you want them to walk away with? Because I know everyone has a slightly different feeling.
Well, I mean, white people crying actually was the goal.
Yeah, so that diversity, equity and inclusion running rampant throughout Hollywood and ruining really good franchises. Actually ensuring, apparently, R2-D2, the little robot, you know, that scoots about and gets on the starships and all the rest of it, apparently that could be a lesbian now.
She's half white, this actress. This is what I don't understand. She's half Danish, then half African-American.
I have skin in this game, as you know, with a mixed-race child. Nobody ever sees a mixed-race child as half white. They see them as black.
We used to say that to focus on the colour of someone's skin was rampant racism and therefore we ought to reject it. Now we're saying actually potentially the only thing that we should notice about a person is the colour of their skin.
I don't really think she was actually wanting white people to be sobbing, and it wasn't malicious, but it's just this silly kind of ruination of something that's meant to be entertainment and fun. I wouldn't go as far as to say Star Wars is art. I'm not.
I love some.
It is, you know, excluding people. Yeah. It's actually dividing people. Once again, by the colour of their skin, we are teaching people to not like each other.
The People's Channel.
White, but still evidently colourful, where you can feel the breeze, taste the sea, walk on the steps of the wise, and mingle with the locals. The Aegean Islands, your real summer like no other.
Welcome back. So, during this seven-way leadership showdown, Angela Rayner claimed that Labour won't rejoin the EU single market.
If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Shameful. Thank you.
Shameful. Yes, absolutely.
Right, so the SNP there saying yes, absolutely. Fascinating, isn't it, given the recent results in the continent there. But let's head over now to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's in the spin room with Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. It's Darren Jones. Christopher, back at you.
Thank you, Patrick. That's right, Darren Jones with me now. Darren Jones, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Penny Mordaunt is right. You're going to rack up taxes.
No, she's wrong. We've been very clear. There's a triple lock promise. We will not increase income tax, national insurance or VAT if we're elected on July the 4th for the course of the next Parliament. And everything in our manifesto today is fully funded and fully costed. What this is from Penny Mordaunt and the Conservatives is desperation because of where they're performing in this election. Whereas what you saw from Angela Rayner, our deputy leader in the Labour Party, was our ambitious plan for growth that we're ready to deliver, and we want to bring that change to the country on July the 4th.
Shall I list all the other taxes you haven't mentioned yet then? Shall I do it? I mean, capital gains tax, so it goes on, stamp duty, all the other measures you might lift, sin taxes, and so it goes on. Are they all going to be left alone too?
Well, next time you should bring all the tomes of the tax code. We can go through it page by page.
You've got it in your bag. You showed me you got your file here.
No, it's much larger than that. It's much larger than that. But look, we're very clear. We do not need to raise taxes. Our funding, our policies are fully funded and fully costed in our manifesto. And we know that people at home, because of the increases in tax under the Conservatives over the past few years, are worried about those big taxes that we all pay. And that's why there's a promise from Labour not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT.
Income is taxed quite highly. Wealth isn't. CGT being one example. Do you want to equalise those two measures?
Well, we've taken action to close loopholes on wealth. That's why the non-dom tax status is changing under a future Labour government if we're elected, and why we're charging income tax on the profits made by private equity bonuses as opposed to them being taxed in capital terms. So we're taking action on asset-based wealth from the wealthy, but people at home are generally not in those circumstances. They worry about income tax, national insurance and VAT, and guess what? Labour will not increase any of them if we win the election on July the 4th.
In that debate on TV just now, Christine from Manchester said immigration levels are too high. She's right, isn't she?
Net migration has become too high, and the reason that it's become too high is because there's not adequate training and skills across the economy for people that want to get on and do different types of work. And that's why we've said in the Labour Party that we're going to make sure that employers who rely too much on overseas labour are required to put in skills and training plan for workers here in the UK, so those jobs are available for UK workers.
Nigel Farage said that many come here and don't want to work, they're not productive. Do you think every migrant who comes here wants to work and be productive?
There are lots of migrants that come to work here in our social care system, for example, and we value and welcome their contribution. But the fact is we become too reliant on overseas labour, and that's why we've got to get these training and skills plans into the UK so that UK workers get the chance for new jobs and new salaries across the economy.
Labour will bring down migration. You said so in your manifesto today. To what level? What's your number?
We're not going to set an arbitrary number because these things fluctuate all the time, and we know know from the Tories that they failed repeatedly in doing that. But we're very clear the net migration numbers need to come down in the way that I've just explained.
Why should voters believe you? Because you let in the A2 nations, the A8 nations back in the noughties, didn't you? And that led to loads of Romanians coming here, Bulgarians, and so it went on.
Well, look, there's a commitment in our manifesto. It's a plan for change, and it's not just a headline policy commitment. It's packaged with a load of support there on skills, on training, on support for the social care system, on the New Deal for working people. That means that for UK workers here in the UK, they'll get protection at work and the opportunities they deserve.
Brexit under Labour, are we out of the single market and out of the customs union? Definitely, for sure.
Yes.
Not everyone believes Stephen Flynn thinks that's shameful.
Well, that's Stephen Flynn's point, and he can answer these questions. But look, the UK has made the decision on Brexit. We respect the outcome of the referendum. Look, we can make improvements to the relationship with Europe because the trade deal that Boris Johnson signed up to left lots of inadequacies in the system, and some of that's now being experienced. And we can improve that trading relationship. But we'll do that as a friend and an ally, as a third country, not by rejoining the European Union.
Your party tonight has started to attack Nigel Farage. Is that because he is now the official opposition to the Labour Party in the sense of in the polls?
No, there's only two people who are going to become Prime Minister on July the 4th. It'll either be Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak. But look, it's quite remarkable that Nigel Farage was so honest about the fact this evening that he felt the National Health Service as we know it should no longer exist, and I think people deserve to know that.
Well, Darren Jones, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Darren Jones there with, he's shrugging off the threat from Nigel Farage. Patrick.
OK, well, thank you very much, Christopher. We'll be going back to you at some point, no doubt. Well, look, I'm just going to reintroduce my panel now. Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. Alison, should we be worried about Labour and tax?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am admiring their message discipline, Patrick. They can touch power now. It's, you know, it's very close to them. So they are holding the line. They're not giving any hostages to fortune. The manifesto was extremely cautious, and they've reassured people we're not going to increase income tax, VAT, national insurance, no increased taxes on working people. So where is this money going to come from? Where are these billions of pounds going to come from? The VAT on private schools, which they seem to think is an endless magic money pot, that's not going to generate very much, because lots of thousands of those children are going to go pouring into the state system because their parents can't afford it. So I think we are going to be looking at raids on probably inheritance tax, pension relief, capital gains tax.
You're shaking your head at this, sir.
Yeah, millions, or however many parents you said, aren't going to pour into the state school system. Fees have repeatedly gone up over the last 20 years, and we've seen no obvious exodus of parents.
200,000, they think, will go into the state system.
Based on what calculations? It's not...
Based on lots of people are not... It's not...
Fees going up. Fees have gone up a lot over the past 20 years, and parents have not taken their children up.
But have fees taken a jump in this 20% in one time?
They've gone higher over the past...
No. At one point. You know, going up 20% over several years, that's inflation. People prepared for that. Your salary will match that. A 20% jump in 1 year.
The point is, we need to get some money into the state school system. It is not fair that there are children who are learning in environments with schools falling on their heads, where their parents have to do whip rounds for pens, for equipment. Look, that is not fair.
Listen,
you have to get the money
I hear what people...
system.
This is what's unfair about this whole election. Nobody's talked about how far the British school system has advanced since the Tories have taken over. I'm a governor of several schools. I have been in the past. I fully accept that no school is awash with money. But let's be clear, if you have any kind of special need, you want to be in a state school, not a private school. We're better at that. We have much more resource. The idea that our state school system's complete rubbish and falling apart is not true. And why the VAT thing annoys me slightly, because they've talked about 6,000 teachers being paid for with this money. What they haven't calculated is when those kids come into the into state schools, not only will you need more teachers, you'll have less money.
They also haven't actually factored into the fact that a lot of teachers want to work in a private school as well. They
just get higher salaries.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea that you're just going to seamlessly transition...
That's not fair either. You know, teachers should...
Why not?
Because you don't want... It shouldn't be at the expense of children's education.
But there are lots of places
when they have strikes. Like a business.
But parents who send their children private are already paying from their income tax for a place they don't use in a state system. So when they suddenly do use that place, you are going... You know, schools are going to lose that money. It's not going to add up.
Private schools are still going to exist. It's not going to decimate the private school sector.
Yes,
They have plenty of money. They don't even have to pass the money on to their fees. Not in all cases. They don't.
OK, I mean, I know from having spoken to plenty of people who are at private schools in terms of teaching staff, etc., over the course of this job, that they are very worried. I mean, there are schools that were founded in, like, the 1600s that could now close down. I mean, Keir Starmer could be going around like Grim Reaper managing to shut a school that has somehow survived since the 1600s, which, you know, is incredible. There is another privatisation debate raging at this election, though, and it is on the NHS. And I believe I've got a little clip here of a back and forth on the NHS.
Now, in this election, we Liberal Democrats have said that our manifesto is a manifesto to save the NHS and social care. We're pledging £9 billion to invest upstream. We see on the TV all these disastrous pictures of people dying in the back of ambulances, suffering the indignity of corridor care because they can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, and that's what we want to fix.
So that was obviously, you know, loads more funding for the NHS. There was the other side of it put up before I go to my panel.
Need to look at countries like France, who spend exactly the same sum of money but get far better services by people paying in to an insurance fund. It acts on a mutual basis. Those that can't pay don't. They get better results. Let's think more broadly.
Sean. So quickly, this is why people don't like politicians, because she said that Nigel Farage said you want to privatise the NHS. He did nothing of the sort. What he offered was a different system. Now, obviously, I'm not here to advocate for Nigel, but it's clear if we're not going to have a realistic, accurate conversation, then people will just turn off. The other thing to say about the NHS, I think we need to remove the politics. We give the NHS £180 billion plus. If the villain of the piece is always politicians, it will never get sorted. We need to give that money to the professionals and let them take charge
no accountability.
and responsibility.
There's no accountability. You know, and I don't mind saying this. I mean, I've given the NHS a really good go recently for the last year and a bit. I was just trying to get an issue dealt with. Over the course of that, I've had 3 different diagnoses. They've lost my scans and an ultrasound twice, actually. And in the end, I was like, look, I want to get this sorted, as most people would. A year and a bit I was waiting there. Went private on Thursday, I think it was. Got a thing tomorrow, and then I've got a phone consultation that should wrap the whole thing up on Monday. You know, I didn't want to do that, right? I didn't want to do it, but people are dying on the NHS because of stuff like that, right?
Thousands and thousands of people are dying, waiting. And I've heard recently, this is just one example of an NHS trust near me, where the neurologists have been told, we can't have waiting lists this big, you need to get some of the people off. These are people with brain problems, and they're literally getting letters sent out to people, sorry you've been on the list for 2.5 years, you're no longer on the list. It's unbelievably serious, Patrick. We have, as Sean said, 180 billion a year, a sum of money that is very comparable with other countries, with half private, half state funding, and we have in the United Kingdom the worst outcomes for common cancers in the developed world, all right? It's unbelievably serious, and they talk about it, all these smug people, oh, our NHS, our NHS. Our NHS is killing people.
Zoe.
Well, I certainly don't want to see the NHS privatised, and I think most parties actually don't want to see the NHS privatised. But I think we do need to be realistic about some of the issues the NHS is facing. Quite clearly, as everyone's just set out there, the NHS is in crisis, and it has been for a long time. Part of that is funding. I do believe the NHS needs money. But actually, there are several other things the NHS needs as well. The first is an adequate functioning social care system. One of the biggest problems with the NHS is that you have people blocking beds because there's nowhere for them to go. They aren't getting care in their communities. They're not getting out of hospitals. This is part of the reason why we've got this huge backlog. We need all the parties to be totally serious about social care. We've got an ageing, ill population, most of them with comorbidities. Unless we get that sorted and we get community care running, the NHS is never, ever going to get
But why has no other country in the developed world copied this system? In Australia, if you had what Patrick had, you go in on the Monday, they say, go for a scan this afternoon. I talked to a GP the other day. She's gone to become a private GP because she says someone comes in with a bad leg. She's not allowed to send them for a a scan. She has to put them on a physio pathway for 6 weeks, which is completely useless. So then there aren't enough scan machines. We have to have competition in the system.
There's two big things. Firstly, we actually have to work on the health of the country. We are a very ill nation. Somebody needs to talk about. Nobody ever talks about the demand the NHS has to deal with. That's the first thing. The second thing, I'll go back to my point. We need to let those professionals who run the NHS take responsibility.
Can I just, sorry to cut across you all, but I'm delving back into the spin ring now because Christopher Hope, our political editor, I believe is with David Bull, Dr. David Bull, I think, to give him his full title, of Reform. Christopher.
That's right. I'm with David Bull. Not sure he's a medical doctor, Patrick, but maybe an academic one. Are you a Dr. David Bull?
I am a medical doctor.
Oh, are
yes,
you? Oh.
Absolutely.
Well, Patrick's been talking about the NHS on air tonight, so perhaps you can go and treat him.
Oh, well, maybe. Obviously, I'm very happy to. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. David Bull, we've heard some policy tonight from your boss, Nigel Farage. He wants to make the House of Lords partially elected. Is that in the manifesto when you finally publish one?
We have been very clear. The House of Lords is not fit for purpose. How can you stuff loads of people into the upper house because they've been good eggs or they've been working as a PPS in a political party? Of course it's not fit for purpose. So we've said fundamentally it needs reform, and Nigel and I and Richard are very clear about that, and that is exactly...
And Ben Habib.
And Ben. Everyone is saying that on the street as well. It is not representative of people around the country.
Your idea is to elect more paid politicians to bung up the whole system with more of these people to get in the way of proper government.
I don't know how many, 630 or thereabouts in the upper house. The fact
900.
Well, there you go. There are even more. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Why do we need so many people? They clock in, they get some money for rocking up, and it's totally unacceptable. So what we need is to actually have democratic accountability, and this is the whole point. And what Nigel also talked about is our failing system. First past the post, when you look at us, we're now at 19%. Every single party is going down. The Tories are an exception. They've stayed static. But we thought this moment would come. This is the inflection point where we are actually now the opposition. And that's very exciting.
Only one poll, YouGov. Other polls have you a bit behind. Other polls have you a lot behind the Tory party in second place.
Just you wait. Just you wait. And this is the point that actually I think when you are in a metropolitan city, I don't think people really understand what's going on in the country. I've seen this once before, and that was in the Brexit vote, where the metropolitan cities said there is no way they will vote to leave, and we voted to leave. I'm seeing it again. Wherever I go around this country, people are saying, thank goodness Nigel's here, thank goodness you're here, the country is broken. And Nigel's right, the country is broken. Nothing works. Nothing works in this country, whether it's the roads, whether it's potholes, whether it's being able to see a doctor. I mean, the whole thing is falling apart.
Nigel Farage wants more referendums. On what? I mean, are we like Switzerland on everything?
Well, I mean, that was interesting, actually, I thought.
He's your leader. What does he mean?
Well, the whole point about democracy is it should be accountable, and that's what...
You make it up on the hoof, David Bull.
So what no, I'm not. But what I will say to you is our contract with the people, not a manifesto, a contract, has been on the website for some time, and we've looked at that and the responses that are coming back. The final contract will be published next week, and we will share that with you on GB News. It's a really exciting document, and actually what it does, I think, is it has vision and drive and determination for this great country and to get it back on its feet.
Will Nigel Farage be allowed into the Tory party? I thought Penny Mordaunt didn't give a clear answer on that.
No, I think what Nigel said is actually we are now the opposition. So the fact is the Tories are imploding. As you know, it's not one group. There are 5, 6 different disparate groups, whether it's the ERG, the Common Sense group, for example, the Conservative Growth group. There are all these different groups, and they're all fighting. So we are focused on what we as Reform can do. So we're determined to win those seats, and as we grow and as we build, and remember this is a 6-year project, then we will take over the Tory party.
You are rising in the polls. How many MPs will you be left with after this election?
Will we be? I mean, I think, as you know, it's very difficult under our current system.
More than 5 or fewer than...
Well, when we started out in this campaign 3 years ago, we said it would be great to get 1, maybe 2 MPs, and we thought that even a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Now we're thinking, well, actually, if we got 2, 3, 4, that would be incredible. And you've got to remember, we're 3 years old. This is David versus Goliath. They've got masses of money to spend. We don't.
So 4 MPs is a best-case scenario for your party?
Well, let's just wait and see, shall we? Because the great British public will vote in their droves for Reform UK, and of that, I have no doubt.
But if you're second in the polls, what's the point? 4 MPs is not even a mass movement.
It's not worth fighting for democracy in this country, because I think it is.
If people on the right want to stop Labour, they should vote for the Tory party.
No, actually, if people want to stop Labour, they should vote for us, because actually we are the effective opposition, not the Conservatives. They've had their go. They've messed it up. 14 years. Penny Mordaunt had no answers for any of that.
David Bull, thank you. You heard it right. You heard it there. 4 MPs we're hearing now from Reform UK. It could be on the cards for this minor party, 3 years old, and it's now surging forward in some of the polls tonight with YouGov.
Lovely stuff, Christopher. Thank you very, very much. In his element there, our political editor, Christopher Hope. I'm just going to whiz you through very quickly the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. So start with the I. Yeah, there we go. Labour overtakes Tories on defence, but gets reality check on growing the UK economy. So I've got some numbers here for you. Labour is 5 points ahead of the Tories on security and defence in the wake of the D-Day gaffe from Rishi Sunak. We've got the overall 41% of voters say they support Labour as the Conservatives slip 2 points to 21%. Let's go to the Times. Poll places Reform ahead of the Conservatives. And there's a picture there of Rishi Sunak and Georgia Maloney looking as though he has just made a very inappropriate suggestion to him, which I'm sure he didn't ask. But anyway, the Nigel Farage's Reform UK party has overtaken the Tories in that YouGov poll for the Times. Let's whiz it over now to the Mirror. We'll give the nation hope. Starmer's manifesto pledged to boost economy, build a brighter future for our children. We've spoken quite a lot there about Keir Starmer already. It was the manifesto launch earlier today. Telegraph, same picture. Rishi Sunak, Georgia Maloney. Just can't. It's so memeable, isn't it? This picture. You know, what's his breath like, for example? Someone might choose to say. Reform overtakes Tories for the first time. Very similar front pages there between the Times and the Telegraph. It must be said. But yes, there we go. So those are some of the papers. If I just bring my panel back in now, we've got Alison Pearson from the Daily Telegraph. I've also got Conservative peer Lord Bailey and journalist and broadcaster Zoe Grunwald. Look, I suppose the big one is, you know, this Reform, isn't it, overtaking the Tories for the first time. We have spoken about it quite a lot tonight, though. We've also touched on the tax issue, haven't we? And we've mentioned...
Can I just say, so this Georgia Maloney with, you know, nice loving with Rishi, well, you'll remember, Patrick, when Georgia was elected, oh dear, you know, Mussolini's granddaughter, far right, dreadful. She's actually taken her place rather gracefully and is now doing very, very well in Italy. And I think we're going to see that now across Europe. And I think the big turning point for Labour, one potential thing, is Marine Le Pen and the lovely toy boy, what's he called, Jordan Bardella. If they take control in France in 3 weeks' time, they could call a referendum on immigration, and that's going to change Europe. And then the Labour government over here, a Starmer government, will be an outlier compared to all these other countries across Europe which are moving to the right, where immigration is a huge thing. But lovely to see.
With presumably Farage and whatever remains of the Conservative Party waiting in the wings. You were making that point about the polls. This one has Labour on 37, but then if you add up Reform and the Tories,
exactly.
You know, OK, and it's absolutely fair to say that they do not all vote for each other, right?
No,
but if you just took that at face value, then that would add up to more.
But what will happen, sorry, Sean, just quickly, what will happen is now this showing Reform ahead, that will embolden a lot of people to now think, oh, because...
But this is my point. So 3 things. Firstly, if Europe changes on immigration, that could benefit a Labour government because it reduces the numbers overall.
No, it won't. No.
Well, I'm just saying, just give you another perspective. The other thing about Reform ahead, why are people not talking about Labour not surging ahead, their numbers coming down? People are talking about Reform ahead because they want to crush the Tories.
Well, that's interesting. Is there not something in that? I mean, this latest poll does have Labour down, doesn't it? So.
Well, look, there are lots of polls. There are going to be even more polls, and they always move slightly. It always depends on what's happened that week. You know, someone's released their manifesto. If Rishi Sunak's left another event early, things shift, right? So we have to take every poll with a pinch of salt. What is true is we have seen that Reform lead going up, and we have seen that Tory lead shrinking. Labour's has stayed pretty firm.
No, I think at one point they were 42%. Now they're at 37. They're going to march downwards. And I said it before, the more people hear from Keir Starmer, the less confidence they'll have in a Labour government.
Is there some concern that we could end up with actually a very unstable, kind of almost immediately unpopular Keir Starmer government?
I think if Labour get into power and Keir Starmer has promised change, that is his one-word slogan, and nothing changes, that he has a very broad pool of support, right, but it's not very deep.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are lending their vote to Labour, thinking anything can be better than the Tories, and if it doesn't change, then actually that could break a lot of trust.
But what you're talking about poll numbers, Zoe, for me, the most really interesting numbers are Sunak's personal popularity is way into negative territory, but so is Keir Starmer's.
Yes.
We have two leaders, and nobody much likes the look of them. We haven't got anyone. We haven't got a Margaret Thatcher. We haven't got a Churchill. We've got two people, and if he becomes Prime Minister and things don't go well, there isn't vast support for him in the country.
I'm just being told we do have a clip, for what it's worth, of Plaid Cymru. And can I just say, the nation holds its breath. Go on, Plaid.
Election, you'll hear me talking a lot about ambition. Where is the ambition from either of the Westminster main parties to invest in allowing us in Wales to make the most of our natural resources through devolving the Crown estate, allowing us to invest in transport and connectivity through giving us the billions we're owed as a result of HS2 rail in England? That's the ambition that we need. We're not hearing it from the Conservatives, and I regret we're not hearing it from
Nigel.
That's a good job they named him, isn't it? Now, the public are openly laughing at politicians' meaningless word salad. It's becoming something of a running theme this election, but you might remember this from last night's battle for number 10 on Sky News.
When I grew up, my dad was a toolmaker. He worked in a factory. It's true. My mum was a nurse, and actually we couldn't make ends meet.
Yeah, there's something very odd happening here with Sir Keir Starmer. So in an exclusive sit-down with GBNews' political editor, Christopher Hope, Mr Starmer gave this quite odd, I think, emotional response to that audience reaction.
So when someone laughed last night, my dad would have turned in his grave.
Was that a bit of snobbishness towards your dad, do you think?
I don't know what caused someone to laugh.
No.
But if you're laughing at someone because they work in a factory, then that is the one thing that I think had a massive impact on someone like my dad, the disrespect. And it's in me. You can see I'm angry about it.
You are angry.
Frustrated.
Do you think he realises that we're not laughing at his dad? I don't think anyone's laughing at his dad. We're laughing at the fact that he keeps using the phrase, my dad was a toolmaker. I mean, it's relentless. But we will get into that. Coming up, though, what sparked the brawl in the Italian parliament that resulted in one pummeled politician leaving in a wheelchair after being battered? We'll reveal all in tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, we'll bring you Labour candidate Dawn Butler's vocal performance as she sings for Britain's vote. Stay tuned.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
His highly rated book details the moving story of how he found his birth mother. I'm pleased to say, of course, I'm joined by the legend that is Andrew Pearce.
Hello. Lovely to be back on your show.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, that was the first time I got you on my show.
I think the first time I ever worked on GB News was on your show.
I couldn't believe it because I used to listen to you all the time on LBC.
Right.
But you found time to write a memoir.
I actually started writing it during lockdown. It was almost just putting thoughts on a piece of paper. I loved my adopted mum, who adopted me. Wonderful woman. She gave me a wonderful life with my dad in Swindon. I was adopted into a home with 3 kids. They were there already. They never resented me. So I never, ever wanted to do anything that would upset my mum. So what I did, I found Margaret and didn't tell mum what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because she had me in the early 1960s. In fact, she was 34.
Wow.
Just a few weeks from her 35th birthday. An Irish Roman Catholic nurse. She had me in Bristol. She lived in Birmingham. She'd gone to extraordinary lengths to cover her tracks. And I was in the orphanage for the best part of 3 years. And she used to visit me regularly because she thought at some point she'd be able to give me a home. But I'm not sure how that was ever plausible because it's the early 1960s and single mothers were the devil incarnate. They really were social pariahs. So it was going to be very difficult for her.
You probably wondered who she is.
Yeah.
And who your father is as well.
Yeah. She visited me regularly till I was 2 years old. It must have been incredibly painful for her to give me up. Well, I discovered during my research in the book that actually when Margaret decided to give me up for adoption, she then wrote to the nuns to say she was going on a holiday and she'd be at a different address. In fact, she was going on a honeymoon. She'd met someone while I was in the orphanage.
The People's Channel.
All right, welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, just before the break, I played you a little snippet of Labour's Dawn Butler, who's made waves on social media today for, well, should we just call it a unique approach to gaining votes? The 54-year-old candidate for Brent East called out the Prime Minister's D-Day antics, made it clear how she wants the Conservatives out of number 10. I think it's only fair at this point that we let Dawn's musical talent speak for itself.
Dawn Butler and Nelson production. Come on, 4th of July. Don't forget to... We got 21 days to go. We got 21 days to go. If you like, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days, we gotta go. Wish you at D-Day, where did he go? Say wish you at D-Day, where did he go? Like don't let a liar run the show. Like don't let a liar run the show. If you like me, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days, we gotta go. 21 days to go.
Right, OK. I believe I've got the full list of candidates in Brent East for you now. Dawn Butler, Labour Party, Jamila Robertson, Conservative and Unionist Party, Johnny Singh, the Lib Dems. And I've also got the big new Kowalczyk of Reform and Nida Al-Falaj of the Green Party, James Mutimer Workers' Party of Britain. Oh, good, there's another page. Jenna Clarence, Joseph Falwell Independent. These are all independents, apparently. Amin Moufi and Adil Sheikh. Those are all independents. Right, brilliant stuff. OK, well, so that was Dawn Butler there. I don't know whether or not people think that was a visible sign of decline in our political class. Very shortly, I'm going to get the nod that I can go back to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who I believe... I believe he's got a surprise for us now. Yes.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Because this is Roy's Rolls in Weatherfield in Coronation Street. Up here, come here, Ollie. Up here. That is Elsie Tanner on the wall because we are in the home of Coronation Street. And Patrick, just for you, an absolute treat. Are you ready? Here it comes. The Rovers return. Look, there it is. The famous pub in Coronation Street. Sadly, this is only a set. I can't get in. But I want to prove to you I'm working really hard for your show tonight.
Honestly, Chris, it was never in doubt. It was never in doubt. You are a beautiful man. Thank you very, very much. Absolutely love it. Didn't think you'd actually go and do that, so thank you very much. It's Christopher Hope, our political editor, there doing it in the way that only he can, whizzing you around, not just when he's not grilling front benches, he's out there looking at Roy's Rolls. And no, that is not a euphemism. So look, what do we make? We've still got a few minutes left here. Alison, what do you make of that Dawn Butler thing? Is it a bit harmless fun, or actually is that a visible sign of...
Can I just say something? So what people might not know, what viewers might not know, 21 Days to Go is from a song called 21 Seconds to Go by So Solid Crew. It was a really big tune, probably in late 90s, and she sort of brought that back because she's in an urban seat. I used to live in her seat, and for some people in her firmament, that will ring a bell and make people laugh.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a bit of fun. It's a teeny bit crazy, but she's never been shy about putting her best foot forward. She's always been...
What do you reckon? I mean, I suppose if people didn't like her, they weren't going to like that. If they do like her, they are. It doesn't really move the dial, does it?
Exactly, and it's, as you know, Sean says, it's for constituents and it's for probably for the youth vote as well, you know. I think it's a great thing. I like to see politicians have fun, a bit of harmless fun, have a joke. I think it's great, and I actually thought it was quite good as well.
You thought it was good? Did you? Yeah. Honestly, not impressed.
Still time for Rishi Sunak to make one.
Very true.
Come on, Patrick, you know, don't leave me this way.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Little, you know.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Yeah.
It should have been me. A bit of a duet with Jeremy Hunt. How much worse could it get?
Walking away, Craig David. Yeah, OK, good.
Bye-bye, baby.
All
baby, bye-bye.
All right, OK. Right, on a slight shift in tone now. Here's Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, talking about Gaza.
It took 4.5 months and the death or injury of almost 100,000 civilians in Gaza for the Labour Party to back a ceasefire. On day one of a Labour government, Will you end arms sales to Israel?
But if we were in government, we would immediately review, as we've been asking the Conservatives, the legal advice on arms sales to Israel, and we will comply with international law.
Thank you.
OK there. So the Gaza discussion, I suppose, it has gone a bit quiet politically on Gaza, hasn't it? I thought that was going to have a bit more of an impact at this election when it came to the Labour Party.
It's quite astonishing that Stephen Flynn, SNP, all the problems that Scotland's got and all these people on the far left, all they can bang on about is Palestine and Gaza.
Well, Gaza makes Glasgow like a paradise.
What's that got to do with the cost of living for people in Scotland? Come on.
The last intervention that the Labour Party made on Gaza was quite a revelation. It's quite worrying. They're talking about recognising a Palestinian state before any negotiation. I think that's very dangerous because you need to have a proper negotiation so we can get to a two-state solution. So I think that's very selfish and self-serving just so they can win an election here that risk lives of both Palestinians and Israelis in Gaza.
Maybe this is not getting enough attention. That actually, it's not just the SNP. A Labour government would fundamentally change our priorities in the Middle East and potentially leave us with not a huge amount of allies there if we decide to divest from Israel.
Well, I don't know about that. I think Labour, clearly this has been a really contentious issue for the party, and a lot of voters do care about what's happening in the Middle East. They see the images coming out of Gaza and they are appalled by them. And I think a lot of MPs have been worried about how Labour's position in the early stages might affect their seats. We've seen the rise of independent candidates. We saw what happened in Rochdale with George Galloway for the Workers' Party. So this is an important issue to the Labour Party.
It's self-serving.
I don't think it is, though, because lots of
an
voters
MP,
care a lot about this.
Let's be clear. Lots of voters care about it, and
it's
that's
a politician's job.
That's correct. No. It isn't a politician's job to be self-serving in their own seat, to endanger the lives of people elsewhere in the world. When the Western world generally, the Western world generally has an idea around a two-state solution. Right, to bring us out of that in your manifesto, just to protect a few of our MPs, I do think is something we need to worry about.
I think people see what's happening in Gaza. I think they hear that over 30,000 people have died. They see a population that is, mainly children, and they feel incredibly upset about that. And they want their politicians to hear that.
I think the Labour Party is going to sell the British Jews down the river, and we're going to see British Jews leaving the United Kingdom in huge numbers. And it's to save their seats, because even Angela Rayner, this is really...
You shouldn't generalise like that. My grandfather was Jewish, and he was very supportive of the rights of Palestinians. You shouldn't generalise.
Most Jewish people I know have helped found the British Friends of Israel, and Jews are saying to us that they are leaving the country. Angela Rayner's in a seat, Patrick, where she is under threat from the Muslim Party.
OK, well, look, hey, we obviously could have carried this on for another hour, but we can't because I've got to go. But look, can I just say a massive thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. As you all know by now, it's Headliners next, so we're taking you through all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. See you in a bit.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Tomorrow, well, there'll be some sunshine, but be prepared for some heavy showers and gusty winds at times as well. We've seen some blustery conditions today across the west from this area of low pressure. It's been bringing in these weather fronts which have been bringing in outbreaks of rain, spreading steadily now to northern Scotland and across eastern England. It will turn a little drier through the night, that rain tending to move away from much of Wales, the Midlands and southern England. A few showers will follow in behind. The wind's easing a touch, but still quite breezy. And a very mild night, not really for the time of year, but certainly compared to most nights of late. Temperatures holding up in double figures. So it won't be as chilly first thing tomorrow morning. There'll be some sunshine over the Midlands and parts of eastern England, but still quite breezy along the south coast. And it won't take long before the showers get going. Certainly, of course, Wales expects some showers through the early part of the morning, coming into western Scotland, northwest England. Parts of Northern Ireland may start dry. A different start to the day here compared to today. But across northern Scotland, a very different day here, because after a largely fine day today, there's going to be much more cloud, rain and a fairly brisk wind, and that may stick around across the far north of Scotland for most of the day. Elsewhere, we'll be chasing the showers through. There will be some sunshine, but the downpours will never be too far away. All areas having that kind of really changeable day. 1 minute it's fine, 10 minutes later it's chucking it down with rain. The showers zipping through on a fairly brisk breeze. And when the sun's out, well, it will feel a little warmer than it has done for most of this week. Temperatures still below average for the time of year, but a little bit higher than many days this week. It's showery right through the weekend. Yes, again.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
England's new patron saint, Gary Lineker, a man holier and more virtuous than Mother Teresa and Gandhi combined, strikes again. Never one to miss the chance of some moral posturing, goal-hanging PR opportunist Lineker has spoken out about tonight's Champions League final. He tweeted the following: "This is the first time I'll be cheering for Real Madrid in a Champions League final." The German side Dortmund have signed a 3-year sponsorship deal with weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall. Now, Gary Lineker is not a stupid person. Following a stellar career on the pitch, it was a storied transition to broadcasting. And let me tell you, he's worth every penny of that £1.3 million a year of licence fee payers' cash to introduce football clips. So how did it escape the attention of this bright man that our democracies and our freedoms are protected and defended by the weapons produced like companies such as Rheinmetall? In fact, we should big up, not cancel, Rheinmetall, who have produced some of the armaments which are now helping Ukraine. Well, I'm very confused because I thought Gary Lineker was very supportive of Ukraine and their battle for survival. But now he wants to take their weapons away. I'm very, very confused. After all, they're going to need weapons with which to defend themselves. They can't fight by sending off tweets like Gary does. Now, many people love Gary Lineker. He has over 8 million followers on Twitter. This idol of the progressive left battled HMRC in court to reduce his tax bill by almost £5 million. This latest Lineker rant about war is weapons-grade nonsense. Sorry, Gary, but you're firing blanks.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Conservative Party has fallen behind Reform UK for the first time in a new YouGov poll. Nigel Farage's party are now 1 point ahead of the Tories. Labour still sits in the lead at 37%, the Lib Dems on 14%, the Greens on 7% and SNP on 3%. 4 out of 7 politicians taking part in the election debate this evening raised their hands when asked whether immigration is too high. Nigel Farage pointed to the Conservatives' record.
Given that your 2010 manifesto, your 2015 manifesto, your 2017 manifesto said you'd reduce net migration to tens of thousands, your 2019 manifesto said immigration would massively reduce, and that net 4.3 million people have come into the country since that time, why on earth should anybody believe the fifth manifesto that promises cuts to net migration?
Because of the record of this Prime Minister. So we've had...
that's fine. I'm happy.
Figures out today.
But Commons leader Penny Mordaunt reaffirmed the Conservatives' plans to halve migration by next summer.
Whatever the public think about the numbers, what they want from their government and their parliament is to control access of foreign nationals to the UK. We can ensure that each year the numbers come down, and on our plans, we are due to halve that number, halve migration, by next summer. With us, you get a cap and a plan. With Labour, they have no cap, no number and no plan.
OK. Meanwhile, Labour has outlined a mental health plan that they pledge will get people back to work as they aim to increase economic growth. Their plan is to recruit an extra 8,500 new mental health staff to treat children and adults, with new Young Futures hubs to provide open access mental health services. They've also pledged mental health support will be available in every school.